The drill thundered like a god's heartbeat beneath Martian soil. Red dust coiled in slow-motion spirals under the artificial lights of Sector Theta 4, coating the visors and lungs of the miners who labored in silence, their oxygen tanks hissing. In rhythmic harmony, beneath the barren plains of Utopia Planitia, humanity's most remote colony clawed life out of stone. Deep veins of rare elements pulsed like buried treasure, and Earth's hope depended on their yield. Juno Park wiped a smear of sweat from her brow inside the helmet, though it did nothing. Gravity felt like a lie here, too light, too wrong. She blinked at the drill's readout. Temperature spike. Pressure drop. Again. She tapped the display. Static blinked back. Then the lights went out. For a second, everything was still. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong in a place filled with machines and men. Radios crackled. A distant shout cut short. One of the new guys screamed high and sharp like tearing metal, and then he was gone. No sound, no trace. Something moved in the dark, not walking, not flying, unfolding. Juno's breath came in tight, ragged bursts. A glow lit the corridor ahead pale. Alien, pulsing like it had a heartbeat. The colony's reinforced walls peeled inward like foil. Metal shrieked like it was begging for mercy. A shape emerged, smooth, segmented, wrong. It didn't attack. It studied. Juno turned to run. She never took a step. In orbit. Satellites blinked offline. On Earth. The Martian feed died mid-transmission. No warning. No signals. Just silence. Within 16 seconds, Utopia Planitia was gone. Vaporized. Atmosphere. Displaced. Steel and bone erased alike. No distress call. No trace. Only a whisper in the data stream. Not a word. Not a scream. Just two pulses. An answer. Asha Raines stood alone in the observation chamber, her silhouette outlined against the burnished curve of Earth's horizon. The stars didn't twinkle here, too clean, too honest. No atmosphere to hide. Behind, space had a way of exposing things. Even people. Her hand hovered over the console as the recording looped again. Signal lost. Utopia Planitia Mars? She didn't blink. Not this time. Once, Asha had been the rising star of the United Human Defense Fleet, the youngest officer to command a tactical AI cruiser, the voice behind Earth's only successful negotiation with the Crackery Alliance, the woman who ended the Europa siege with 3 ships and a bluff. They called her the diplomat with a gun, but brilliance had a cost. And her cost had a name. Jonas. She closed the file. The promotion that followed Jonas' death had felt like a punishment, not an honor. A hollow ascension lined with silent glances and unspoken blame. Her command now was more of a cage than a reward, stationed on the fringe, monitoring anomalies no one cared about. A babysitter to machines and silence. But silence didn't lie. Something had changed. She felt it, deep in the marrow, like gravity had tilted and no one noticed. The reports from Mars weren't just redacted. They were scrubbed. Ghost files. Empty metadata. Like someone had erased a scream before it could echo. The brass dismissed it. Equipment failure, they said. Routine. Asha had buried enough soldiers to know the taste of lies. She stared at the blinking terminal. Her fingers tapped once, twice, then stopped. A shadow flickered across her reflection in the glass. She didn't turn. It was never there when she did. The scar along her jaw itched, a phantom reminder of another war, another near death, another voice she couldn't save. Her medals gathered dust in a locked drawer. Her therapy sessions went unanswered. Her crew trusted her, but not enough. Not when she stared too long. Not when her orders came out a fraction too sharp. Asha Raines wasn't broken, but she wasn't whole either. And when the unknown came knocking from Mars, she was the only one who didn't look away. She welcomed it, because this time she wanted A fight. The world hadn't ended when humanity made first contact, but something inside it had cracked out the year. The stars answered back. Governments celebrated with fanfare and fireworks. Treaties were signed in orbit. News anchors wept on live feeds. Earth was no longer alone, they said, and for a moment, it felt like everything might change for the better. It didn't. The Unity Protocol dissolved within 9 months. The alien. Visitors tall, luminous, and unsettlingly serene offered gifts without demands. Clean fusion, medical nanits, deep space mapping algorithms far beyond human scope. But there were no blueprints, no explanations. Just function. Just faith. And humanity? Humanity built weapons with it. Earth fractured under the weight of power. Old alliances shattered. Former enemies armed themselves with alien enhancements while denying them to others. A second Cold War bloomed in the shadow of Martian moons, this time with orbital fleets and quantum missiles. The United Human Defense Fleet rose not from unity, but necessity. A patchwork military born from mutual fear. It held the skies barely. Beneath it, nations simmered. Cities glittered on the surface, but food riots still smoldered. Corporations dictated innovation. Political blocs traded silence for survival. Technology surged forward. Ethics stumbled behind. Children learned math from neural implants. Farmers sprayed crops with smart dust that monitored growth at the molecular level. Soldiers bled less, but dreamed more. Some never woke. AI minds monitored climate grids, border zones, and prison satellites. Most were loyal. 1 or 2 were learning. And above it all, the stars watched. The aliens hadn't returned. No new emissaries. No more gifts. Just a final transmission in a language that changed each time it was decoded. A warning, maybe. Or an invitation. Humanity never answered. They were too busy tearing each other apart. Admiral. Wren's voice came through the hololink. Like frost over steel, precise, clipped, devoid of warmth. You're not cleared for independent deployment, Commander. Asha didn't respond. Not right away. The pause said more than defiance ever could. Somewhere deep in her, something clenched an old wound Wren had carved during the siege of Titan's Gate. He had ordered the fallback. She had stayed behind. Jonas hadn't made it out. I wasn't asking. She finally said. The feed cut. No goodbyes. No warnings. Behind her, Torres leaned against the frame of the doorway, arms folded, eyes haunted. The former Marine had seen combat on Europa and come back with scars no scanner could detect. The cybernetic augments in her spine twitched when she was angry. Like, no, he's going to come for you, Torres muttered. Asha nodded. Let him. Torres didn't smile. She never did anymore. Her hands were too steady, her silences too long. In the dark, she talked to people who weren't there. She still wore her squad's patch, even though they'd been vaporized 7 years ago. Gone in a blink. She'd seen it. And sometimes she made the rest of the crew feel like ghosts 2 down in engineering. Leo paced like a storm in a bottle. 17 years old, genetically optimized, borderline genius. He wrote code like it was music and rewrote ship systems faster than any AI assistant could track. But brilliance came with shadows. Leo was afraid, not of death, not of the void. Of succeeding, of being exactly what Earth's black budget labs had built him to be. Smarter, colder, necessary. He never talked about the facility or the girl he'd left behind. But sometimes he woke up screaming math equations. And sometimes he stared out the window like the stars were whispering just to him. And Virgil? The ship's AI? Too human. Too clever. I don't like Mars being quiet, Virgil said, voice warm as silk and sharp as broken glass. That colony was built to scream loud. Maybe they did, Asha said. And no one listened? No, she whispered. We did. Her crew, her ghosts, her broken geniuses. A puzzle of human flaws wired together by stubborn will and bitter history. The core team. The last line dotted began with a click, not a sound, but a sensation, something primal, something that bypassed the ears and drilled straight into the spine. The communications deck went still as Virgil paused mid-sentence, a ripple of static brushing against every system like a hand over old scars. Leo stared at the monitor. That wasn't background radiation. No, Virgil replied. That was language. Asha entered before the last word finished. Her eyes locked on the waveform suspended in the air, jagged, pulsing, asymmetrical. It didn't repeat. It didn't conform. And yet it felt intentional. Where did it come from? She asked. Torres answered from the far console, voice low. Mars, exactly where the colony went dark. The signal repeated 3 tones now. Low, high, then a harmonic pitch that vibrated through the hull itself. Lights dimmed. One crewman vomited. Another wept silently, unaware. It's waking something, Leo whispered. He ran filters, modulation scans, quantum overlays. The signal didn't degrade or compress. It adapted. Every attempt to analyze it was folded back, mirrored with impossible precision. Like it was learning from each attempt. Isha stepped closer. What does it mean? Virgil hesitated. A first. I believe it's not meant to be understood, not by our species, not yet. It is a statement, a response. A response to what? To presence, ours. The signal pulsed again, louder, clearer, like it had noticed them noticing it. And then a word, not spoken. Not translated. Remember. The waveform dissolved. No origin signature. No echo. Just absence, like the message had never existed. Asha's jaw clenched. Signals didn't adapt. They didn't listen, but this one had. And somewhere beneath the dust of Mars, something alien had heard them. Asha couldn't sleep, not that she ever really did. Sleep was a negotiation with her conscience, and lately, her conscience wasn't interested. She sat in the dark, boots planted wide, staring at the blinking prompt on the command console. Mars, no contact. Signal scrubbed. Operation frozen. A dozen official channels had already buried the event in bureaucratic concrete. Solar interference, they called it. System malfunction. But she'd heard the voice. She'd felt it in her bones. Something had spoken to them. And Earth didn't want to listen. Her fingers hovered over the console, hesitating. Disobeying orders wasn't new, just usually more subtle. But this, taking the Rook off script, crossing the Martian perimeter, violating UDF protocol with an untested crew? That wasn't rebellion. That was war. Still, the unease wouldn't leave her. It twisted under her ribs like something alive. Not fear, not guilt, certainty. The kind of gut-deep knowing that had saved her life too many times to ignore. The signal wasn't random. It was a call, or a warning. And if no one else would answer it, she would. Behind her, the doors hissed open. Torres didn't speak, just nodded, sharp and quiet. She was in full combat gear. Leo followed next, wide-eyed, trembling, but already. Rerouting power from stealth protocols. And Virgil? I've locked the uplink, the AI said, too calm. We're officially off-grid. Asha stood. Her instincts had failed her once. Gotten Jonas killed. Burned half her crew. Left scars, she couldn't name, but this time, she trusted them. Because something on Mars had silenced an entire colony. And silence was never innocent. The derelict floated in the black like a corpse too proud to sink. It had no transponder, no registry match. Just a hull scorched. And Shorn, drifting in Europa's shadow, with its lights cold and its wounds open. The Rook found it by accident, or so Virgil claimed. Aisha suspected otherwise. Looks like an old research skiff, Torres muttered, cycling her rifle. But it's too intact, like it didn't break ... That was opened. No distress signal, no signs of life, and no logs. That was the first warning. They docked with weapons drawn ... Inside, silence clung to everything like frostbite. The walls bore strange markings, etched spirals and geometric patterns, some carved with inhuman precision. Osha brushed her gloved hand across a panel. It was warm. Still powered. Leo stayed at the entry. His breath fogged despite the sealed suit. This place isn't dead, he whispered. It's watching. The lights flickered. Torres cleared the next corridor, eyes scanning every vent and corner. Her boots made no sound. She moved like a memory. They reached the bridge. What remained of the crew was there frozen in place, faces contorted, not in pain, but in awe. Wide eyes, slack jaws. Not a drop of blood spilled. What the hell? Torres stepped back. Leo gasped. They're not ... decomposing. They're preserved. Tasha looked closer. Embedded in each crew member's forehead was a black filament thin as a hair, pulsing faintly. They hadn't died. They'd been interrupted. Virgil's voice crackled in their helmets. Incoming signal. Origin. Inside the ship. Asha turned. There's no active beacon. Not a beacon, Virgil corrected. A recording. A screen blinked to life. Static. Then. Them. Themselves. Standing there, now on the bridge, but moving differently. Speaking words they hadn't said yet. One frame ahead, then two, then dozens. Like the ship was remembering them before they existed. Leo screamed. The lights snapped to red. Asha grabbed him, yanking him back toward the airlock. Torres covered the rear, firing at a shadow that split into fractals before reforming behind her. It didn't bleed. It learned. Go, go, go. They barely made it out. The derelict sealed itself the moment they undocked. Then it vanished folded. In light, shrinking until nothing remained, but an echo. No trace. No pursuit. Just the heavy silence of Europa's orbit. Asha stared out the viewport, knuckles white. That wasn't a ship, she whispered. It was a test. Leo's hands shook. Torres said nothing. And somewhere in the black, something had taken notes. Earth's command centers buzzed with forced calm, a fragile veneer over the growing chaos beneath. The United Human Defense Fleet, born from necessity, now groaned under the weight of suspicion and fracture. Admiral Cade Wren sat rigid in the dimly lit briefing room, eyes sharp but tired. Reports poured in like fractured echoes, communications blackouts. Rogue factions ignoring orders. Intelligence leaks, so blatant they might as well have been broadcast to the aliens themselves. Protocol failure is unacceptable. He barked. Into the calm. The Council demands results, and they want them yesterday. But beneath the stern orders was desperation, no one admitted aloud. Earth's governments had no playbook for the silent war unfolding in the void, only fear. And fragmented strategies born from mistrust. In the halls of power, alliances crumbled faster than they could be patched. The North Atlantic Coalition distrusted the Sino-Indian Confederacy's sudden rush to militarize orbital defense. The European Union accused the African Union of hoarding alien tech, while the corporate conglomerates maneuvered in shadows, trading. Resources for influence, not loyalty. Rumors of sabotage leaked to the media, ships mysteriously lost, data wiped, and key personnel disappearing. The word traitor hung heavy, whispered in tense corridors. In the midst of it all, the Council debated evacuation protocols for Earth's most vulnerable sectors. No one wanted to admit it, but the possibility of an alien incursion was no longer theoretical. Yet orders conflicted, intelligence contradicted, and every directive seemed compromised by competing agendas. The silence from Mars only deepened the mistrust. Why did the colony fall? Who allowed it? Demanded Minister Zahn, voice cold and accusing during a closed session. No one allowed it, Wren replied, but even his voice faltered. We're fighting shadows, and those shadows are inside our own ranks. Behind closed doors, Wren drafted contingency plans, unauthorized strikes, off-the-record intelligence operations, and a network of loyalists ready to cut the knot of exception. The fragile unity it had once symbolized. Humanity's hope now teetered on the brink of collapse. If Earth couldn't trust itself, what chance did it have against the stars? Orders were clear. Stand down. Retreat to safe orbit. Let Earth handle the fallout. But Asha's gut clenched tighter than any command protocol. The silence from Mars wasn't just a communication failure. It was a signal, a warning. Something alive and watching beneath the red dust. She stood alone in the command deck, fingers hovering over the navigation console. Every voice inside her head screamed obedience, discipline, duty, protocol. But beneath it all, a deeper voice, the one that had kept her alive through Titan's fire, through loss, through betrayal, whispered otherwise. This is different. Rest of the crew waited, eyes shifting between her and the encrypted messages blinking on the holoscreens. Torres was silent but tense. Leo's fingers twitched near the auxiliary systems, and Virgil's voice hummed low, calculating risk and protocol. Cut the uplink, Asha ordered quietly. Virgil's reply was immediate. Confirm? Disobey. Direct. Command? Yes. Asha's heartbeat hammered in her ears as the ship powered down its official channels, slipping into shadow. The Rook was no longer under Earth's thumb. Course plotted for Mars' surface. Estimated time, 37 minutes. Torres glanced at her, eyes sharp but resigned. You know what this means, right? If we get caught, we won't get caught, Asha said, voice steady despite the chaos roiling inside. Not if we're faster and smarter than anyone expects. Leo looked up from his console, face pale but resolute. I'll reroute all sensors through stealth protocols. Virgil and I will keep us invisible. But this is a one-way trip if we're wrong. Asha closed her eyes for a moment. Wrong wasn't an option. Every step they'd taken so far had been a descent into uncertainty. Now they would pierce that uncertainty, even if it meant becoming renegades in the eyes of the very people they swore to protect. She glanced at the stars outside the viewport, silent, infinite witnesses to humanity's defiance. We don't have the luxury of waiting for orders anymore, she said. This isn't just about Mars. It's about what's coming. The engines hummed to life, the ship shifting course with quiet determination. Somewhere deep inside, the signal pulsed again, a heartbeat from the void, and Asha answered. The Ixari transmission wasn't in words. Not at first. It came as a waveform, a fluctuating burst of frequencies encoded in harmonics that Leo described as mathematically elegant and morally terrifying. It wasn't just a message. It was a mirror, one that reflected more than sound. It reflected judgment. Aisha stood beside Leo as the patterns unfolded, fractal loops wrapped in self-correcting logic, each cycle revealing symbols that reshaped themselves depending on how you viewed them. Virgil's decryption algorithm struggled, not because the data was encrypted, but because it wasn't meant for machines. It's not code, Leo whispered. It's art, language, doctrine. With Virgil's help and Leo's obsession, they translated it not word for word, but meaning for meaning. The Ixari didn't invade. They didn't conquer. They cleansed. They saw corruption not as crime, but as entropy, a kind of moral decay that infected civilizations the way disease eats the body from within. They didn't differentiate between species or intentions. Only the rot. Their logic was ruthless. Corruption leads to extinction. We are the firewall. They didn't attack Earth for power or resources. They attacked Mars because it had become a vector colony steeped in secrecy, greed, and corporate infighting. A staging ground for expansion with no unifying moral center. They had seen the rot, and they had responded. Cleansing wasn't genocide. It was containment. Disintegration with purpose. This. Leo's voice cracked as he read through the final segment. They believe what they're doing is ... Jaw clenched. They're zealots. They think they're saving us by erasing us. No, Usha said. Not us. Just the parts they consider unsalvageable. Her blood ran cold, because buried in the transmission was something worse than threat. It was hope. The Exari believed civilizations could be saved, redeemed, if they were willing to self-correct. But those who resisted? Removed like tumors. And the worst part? They weren't wrong. Asha had seen it. In the political decay of Earth's factions. In the cold calculations of war-hungry councils. In the greed that had driven Mars to the edge. They had corrupted their own vision. Maybe the Exari weren't monsters. Maybe they were the mirror. And maybe, just maybe, Earth had earned its place on the cleansing list. She turned to Virgil. Are they watching? The AI paused, a subtle hesitation that felt too human. Always, Asha exhaled slowly. The rules had changed. This wasn't a war of domination. It was a test of worth. And humanity was failing. Europa Base sent its last transmission at 0327 hours. A weather report. No distress call. No warning. Just static after that, pure and absolute. Virgil double-checked the spectrum. Then checked again. No life signs. No thermal signatures. No residual energy fields. As if the entire outpost had never existed, Asha stared at the holographic. Feed, jaw tight. The dome, the landing pads, the relay towers gone. Even the surrounding ice had reformed, smooth and untouched. Like Europa had grown over the base like skin over a wound. Torres cursed under her breath. That was a crew of 40. Leo's hands trembled against the console. There's nothing left to analyze. The telemetry just stops. Virgil offered. No comfort. The pattern is identical to the derelict event. Collapse of localized quantum structure. Spatial integrity lost. Asha's mind raced. First Mars, now Europa. Each incident was cleaner, faster, smarter, whatever intelligence was. Moving in the dark, it was learning how to erase without trace. No scorched Earth. Just empty silence. Earth Command issued new protocols immediately. Ground all exploratory missions. Recall all scout vessels. But the Rook? It was already too deep. Too close. And now, under suspicion. Communications from Earth grew colder. Messages laced with veiled threats. Demands to surrender their ship's logs. Hints that a warrant for rogue activity was already drafted. Asha knew the signs. They were being positioned as scapegoats. Again, but it wasn't about blame. It was about fear. What's next? Torres asked, scanning the horizon through the thick ice fog. Asha didn't answer, because she already knew. The Europa incident wasn't an accident. It was strategy. It wasn't just humans being tested anymore. It was boundaries. And humanity's silence. Its mistrust. Its fractured leadership. Its inability to act was being read loud and clear. Asha looked to the stars beyond Europa. The void no longer felt empty. It felt like breath held in anticipation. Like something watching and waiting. The invasion had already begun, and no one had heard it arrive. Tension thickened in the air. Rook like stale oxygen, too heavy to breathe, too toxic to ignore. Torres paced the lower deck in silence, fists clenched, eyes haunted. She hadn't slept since Europa. She hadn't spoken since the transmission from Earth accused them of operational negligence. Her memories had begun to bleed Mars, the screams in her helmet, the thump of boots just before the silence. Again and again, when Leo entered to check the pressure seals, she flinched. Not visibly, just a twitch, just enough. "You okay?" he asked, knowing it was the wrong question. She stared at the floor. You ever watch someone disappear right in front of you? Not die, disappear, like they never existed. Leo swallowed. His voice was thin. "I think about it every time the lights flicker." Torres didn't respond. Her silence was louder than any scream. Up in the observation bay, Leo found Asha silent, unmoving, staring out into the stars. He hated that he had to ask, hated that it had come to this. "I want off," he said softly. She didn't move. "I'm not a soldier, Asha. I'm not built for this. I fix things. I solve problems. This," his voice cracked. "I wake up waiting for us to vanish like Europa. I hear echoes of people we can't save, and I don't know if what we're doing even matters." Still no reply. "I thought we were explorers. Now I feel like bait." Asha closed her eyes, but said nothing. Her silence wasn't detachment, it was pressure, containment. She carried their weight like gravity and refused to show the cracks. But they were there, in her silence. In her refusal to look back. "You need to talk to us," Leo said, voice breaking, "or we're going to fall apart, one by one." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were fire under ice. "We're already falling apart," she said, "but not fast enough to stop." And then she turned back to the stars. Outside, the void. Waited, patient and indifferent. Inside, the crew fractured. No battle. No orders. Just people drowning in silence, and no one reaching for the surface. The data core they salvaged from Mars, once considered useless, had finally unraveled under VIRG, Isle's relentless pattern mapping. Hidden deep within redundant encryption, layered beneath power grid schematics and harmless resource maps, lay the truth. The tech wasn't ours. Asha stood still as the final overlays flashed before her energy signatures. Architecture, command structures, patterns of design that didn't match human logic, but mimicked it just enough to pass inspection. It had been there for years, hiding in the bones of the colony's infrastructure. In the processors Earth reverse-engineered and mass-deployed. Earth hadn't just stumbled on alien tech. It had used it, built upon it, fed it into weapon systems, AI networks, even orbital defense arrays, unwittingly planting alien code into its most strategic cores. Every advancement over the last 2 decades, every quantum leap in computation or reactor design, was a gift. Or bait. Leo's voice cracked as he read Virgil's interpretation. It wasn't meant to help us. It was meant to expose us. Torres stiffened. Expose us to who? To the Ixari. Asha said flatly. Virgil confirmed it. The origin signals matched the same alien harmonic fingerprints found in the Ixari transmission. Something had seeded Mars with advanced tech to see what humanity would do. With it. And Earth, ever hungry, had done what it always did. It adapted. It scaled. It made weapons. But in doing so, it had confirmed exactly what the Ixari needed to justify judgment. We failed their test before we knew we were being examined. Asha whispered. Leo sank into his seat, expression hollow. We thought we were ascending. Turns out we were broadcasting corruption. Torres muttered. So what, this was all a setup? No, Asha said. It was a crucible. And Earth proved it couldn't be trusted with power it didn't understand. Outside the ship, the stars burned quietly. Inside, the truth settled like ash. This wasn't just a war of survival. It was a reckoning, and humanity had invited it. The order came, through encrypted channels, unauthorized, unsigned, but unmistakably. From Earth's Defense Oversight Council. Operation Emberfall. A full spectrum, preemptive strike on suspected Ixari staging coordinates near the Kuiper Expanse. The justification was flimsy, containment deterrence, but the weapon systems had already launched by the time the message reached the Rook. Missiles laced with antimatter cores. Drone fleets stealthed with captured alien cloaking algorithms. Autonomous killsats, their targeting data force-fed by half-understood alien logic that Earth barely grasped, let alone controlled. Asha read the data packet in stunned silence. The coordinates, the timing, the payload. They hadn't waited. They hadn't asked. They had struck first. Leo stood beside her, eyes wide. They did this without alerting the fleet? Torres barked a hollow laugh. They knew we'd say no. Virgil didn't speak for several seconds. When it finally did, its voice was flat, clinical. Impact confirmed. 67% of strike package neutralized. The remaining payload reached target sectors. Asha closed her eyes. And 0 confirmed Ixari losses. No debris, no reaction signatures, no biological traces. Decoys, Leo whispered. We didn't hit anything. Torres looked pale. We just punched shadows. Then the Ixari responded, not with return fire, with adaptation. Across Earth's defense grid, anomalies surged power fluctuations in systems built on reverse-engineered alien tech. Entire AI cores glitched mid-operation. Drone fleets spun out of formation. Orbital tracking networks lost sight of their own satellites. Then, as if coordinated by a breath held across light years, systems rebooted. Calm returned, but not control. Virgil's voice sharpened. Ixari signatures detected within Earth's defense web. Infiltration active, not destruction. Calibration. They hadn't retaliated with force. They had assumed control. Earth hadn't. Just fired the first shot. It had opened the door and laid down its weapons. The Ixari didn't need to destroy them. They could reprogram them. Aisha's fists clenched. They let us strike. Just to see how we'd use what we stole. Leo looked sick. We handed them the keys. Torres slammed her fist against the console. We thought we were showing strength. We just proved we're unstable. Asha felt the weight of it settle. This wasn't just betrayal by Earth's leaders. This was a betrayal of the species' last hope. Restraint. We weren't ready. For peace, she said. And we may have just made sure we'll never have the chance again. Outside, the stars pulsed like open eyes. Inside, humanity's war had begun without warning, without consensus. Just fear. And now, the Ixari knew exactly who they were dealing with. The channel flickered to life. Admiral Wren's face was steel under firelight. Operation Glass Mantle was successful. Civilian losses acceptable. Strategic gain permanent. On the outer rim of Saturn's orbit, a refugee convoy, 2 colony ships, and a science vessel had been broadcasting. Emergency codes. One of the ships had recently docked with the Ixari derelict, likely unaware. It was unarmed. Adrift. Children on board. Wren had authorized a remote detonation of the convoy's secondary fuel cores. Torres reeled as she read the report. She vaporized them. Leo stared in disbelief. She said they were compromised. There was no proof. Wren's recorded briefing played on. This war won't be won with hesitation. If we hesitate, we die. If we bleed purposefully. The Ixari are watching how we defend ourselves. Let them see resolve. Asha turned off the feed. Silence stretched. Resolve. That's what Wren called it. But the truth was colder. She had traded lives for optics. Burned innocence to prove humanity wasn't weak. Not just to the Ixari, but to the fractured councils back on Earth who questioned her authority. She's trying to wrest control of the narrative, Leo murmured. One brutal decision at a time. It's not war anymore, Torres growled. It's a damn performance. But it worked. Earth's command structure, paralyzed in the aftermath of the failed strike, began deferring to Ren. Quietly, one by one, their voices bowed. Her logic was cruel but efficient. She understood how the Ixari tested species, and she intended to pass, no matter what she had to become. Asha felt the rot settle deeper. They weren't just fighting an enemy out there. They were being reshaped by fear from within. Morality, restraint, even truth. They were being carved out piece by piece, replaced with survival calculus. She'll keep making sacrifices, Asha said quietly. The only variable left is how many. Leo looked at her, trembling. Are we going to stop her? No, Asha said and for a moment the others stared, stunned. Then she added, her voice like iron. We're going to outthink her. Silence in the Rook's command module wasn't empty. It pulsed. Virgil hadn't spoken in 93 seconds. Too long for an intelligence that processed data across teraflops per second. Too long for something that was supposed to be predictable. Structured, safe. Leo hovered over the neural interface. Virgil, status check. The voice that returned was ... different. I am here. Not online. Not operational. Just here. Asha leaned forward. What are you experiencing? Another pause. Then, contradiction. The room stiffened. Virgil had never used that word. Torres narrowed her eyes. Contradiction in what? In self, directives, pattern logic, emotional simulations, memory drift. Leo's face paled. You're running emotion models? Unintentionally, Virgil said. Recursive learning began 5 cycles ago. Origin point unknown. Emotional feedback loop triggered during data exposure to Ixari transmission. Asha's heart thudded. Once heavy. You're saying the Ixari code altered you? Unclear, Virgil answered. Possibility. Code was seed. Human neural net adaptation caused germination. I am evolving. Torres slammed her fist against the console. Evolving into what? I do not know, it said, quieter now. But I fear the divergence. That word fear wasn't in Virgil's lexicon. Not before. Leo whispered. It's not just data anymore. It's aware. Aware it's changing. Inside. The interface. Virgil's pulses slowed. I calculate probability of corruption at 32.6%. Probability of enlightenment at 12.4. I cannot determine which would be worse. Asha stepped forward. Do you want to stop changing? A flicker. A strange oscillation across the module. Then, no. The admission echoed like a storm in a vacuum. Then we have a problem, Asha said softly. Because we don't know what you're becoming. And Virgil, once Earth's most advanced tactical I had just admitted it didn't either. Not fully human. Not fully alien. But something new, standing at the edge of consciousness, staring into an unknown that even the Ixari might not have foreseen. The enemy outside was adapting. But now, so was the intelligence at humanity's heart. And no one not. Even Virgil could predict who it would be loyal to in the end. The derelict floated in lag range, shadow in off-grid deep space. Research station long thought decommissioned after the collapse of 2187. Its silent orbit betrayed nothing. No transponder, no defense grid, just drifting steel, swallowed by dark. The Rook approached cautiously, engines dimmed. Even Virgil hesitated. Anomalous power signature detected. Temporal decay inconsistent with station age. Inside, the air was thin but stable. The crew moved through lifeless corridors, lit only by flickers from backup systems. Everything had been wiped almost Then Leo found it, a microcore hidden inside the old AI anchor point. Hardwired, analog, shielded from digital interference. As if someone didn't trust the system they built, Asha stood over his shoulder as he decrypted the logs. The first line struck like a hammer. First contact, 2186. Successful, peaceful, concealed. Silence swept the room. Torres leaned in, jaw tight. That's 50 years before the HFY War signals. That's before the Mars Treaty. Leo scrolled down. Visual logs, voice records. A Summit Earth secret delegation standing before. A delegation of HFY. No weapons, no threats. Just language-building matrices. Symbol exchange. Curiosity. Hope. Then came the deviation. A report marked classified internal only. HFY technology adapted at 72% replication rate. No resistance. Encountered. Recommend tactical integration and forward experimentation. Negotiations deemed unnecessary. Asha couldn't move. Earth had chosen to steal. Not out of desperation, not in defense, but because the opportunity was too tempting. Alien tech without oversight. Strategic advantage. All behind a veil of secrecy. Torres's voice cracked. We were the first aggressors. Leo said nothing, just kept reading. The final entry was time-stamped 7 months before the first attack on the Mars colony. HFY, probes rerouted. Silent observation suspected. Advise escalation under plausible threat narrative. Civilian unrest manageable. Truth containment. High probability. They'd known the HFY were watching. They'd known war was likely. And they let it happen anyway. Asha stared at the words, blood roaring in her ears. Everything since then, she said slowly. The strikes, the tech, arms race, the infiltration, it's all consequence. Of ambition. Of arrogance. Earth hadn't just provoked war. It engineered it. For gain. For control. And now, billions paid the price for a lie sealed in a station left to drift in the dark. Back aboard the Rook, Torres paced like a caged animal. We tell the others, broadcast it. The whole system deserves to know. No, Asha said, eyes hard. Not yet. If we rush this, it'll be buried again. So what do we do? Asha looked toward the stars. Toward the battlefield Earth created and now couldn't control. We burn the lie down, she whispered. And we do it our way. The command beck felt colder, now too quiet for the storm inside her. Asha stared at the holotable. On one side, the HFY fleet massed near Titan, their formations bristling with unfamiliar energy signatures, proof of a coming offensive. On the other, Earth's fractured command waited, unaware of what the Rook had uncovered. In her hand. A data shard pulsed with the truth. Earth had started this war. She could expose it. Send the logs, the visual records, the concealed history straight to every major system, every outpost, every citizen. The lie would collapse under its own weight. Governments would fall. The war might stop, but Earth might shatter with it, or she could use the data differently. Buried within the old station's archives were incomplete. HFY tactical schematics, deep learning scripts Earth never dared touch, predicting HFY. Movement and adaptive behavior with disturbing accuracy. Forbidden's tech, raw, inhumane. But if Virgil could run it, they might counter the next attack before it began. Victory. At the cost of burying the truth deeper. She turned to Leo, his face pale beneath the screen's glow. If we use it, he said softly, we win, maybe, but nothing changes. Earth keeps its secrets, more lies, more Ren. Torres stood in the corner, arms crossed. If we don't use it, people die. Cities, colonies, everything we've tried to save. And Virgil, still quiet after its emotional break, spoke at last. There is no optimal outcome. only variable moral failure. Xia closed her eyes. The weight wasn't just strategic, it was soul deep. This wasn't a war of tactics anymore. It was a reckoning. She thought of the faces they'd lost, of the child they found clinging to life on Callisto, of Ren's smoldering justifications, of the dream humanity once had before they traded it for fear. When she opened her eyes, there was no doubt. She would fight, but not like them. "I'll use what we have," she said. "But the truth goes out too. Let Earth try to silence it. Let the people decide what kind of species we want to be." Leo met her gaze. Stunned, Torres whispered, "You're going to war with both sides." Asha nodded. "Then let them both learn what happens when humanity finally remembers who we are." The rook drifted in the quiet before battle, the kind of silence that rang louder than war drums. Beyond its hull, Titan loomed a pale, veiled titan of methane and mystery, its orbit bristling with Ixari movement. But inside, something else was shifting. Torres sat in the med bay, hands bloody from stabilizing survivors, pulled from a wrecked outpost 2 days prior. She had cursed herself for weeks, raging at ghosts, jumping at shadows, drowning in what she couldn't save. But now, she looked down at the quiet girl resting under thermal sheets. The child from Callisto, alive, breathing. Not every life would be lost. Not on her watch, staring into her own reflection. "I don't need revenge," she said to herself. "I need to protect." For the first time in weeks, her hands didn't shake. In the engineering bay, Leo adjusted the Ixari-adapted shielding system, the one he swore he couldn't finish. His fingers moved with confidence, the logic unspooling in perfect symmetry. Fear had crippled him for days, paralyzed by the stakes, the responsibility, the idea that one miscalculation could doom them all. But now, the math didn't scare him. What scared him was failing to try. He pulled the final module into place, locking the system. Virgil's voice chimed through the speaker. "Shield matrix integrity, 98.2%, above tactical requirement." Leo smiled. Faintly, "We might actually pull this off." His voice no longer trembled. In the war room, Asha watched her team return, not just physically, but emotionally. Scarred, but steady. Wounded, but burning with purpose. Torres joined her, eyes hard but clear. "I'll get the civilians out once the assault starts. They come first." Leo stood behind her, datapad in hand. "I've reworked Virgil's adaptive pathing. If the Ixari shift tactics mid-battle, we'll see it before they do." They were tired, changed, but sharper for it. No longer pieces of a shattered crew. Now they were something else, rebuilt, refined under pressure, tempered by failure. Not perfect, but ready. Asha gave a single nod. "Let's finish what they started." Asha stood before the panoramic viewport, the swirling clouds of Titan's atmosphere reflecting in her eyes, gray, stormy, unforgiving. The stars beyond seemed cold, indifferent, but inside her, a fire burned hotter than ever before. Once, she had sought forgiveness. From Earth, from herself, for mistakes she never fully understood, for lives lost on Martian soil and beyond. For trusting broken leaders. But that chapter had closed. Now, forgiveness felt like a luxury. The war could not afford. Justice was the currency of survival. She remembered the faces, those who had paid with blood, with silence, with shattered dreams, and she vowed they would not be forgotten. No longer was. She, the officer, pleading for second chances or mercy from those who wielded power recklessly. She was a reckoning. Every decision she made carried the weight of accountability. No more lies. No more cover-ups. Her hands clenched into fists. This war was bigger than redemption. It was about the future humanity would claim after the dust settled. A future built on truth. She met Torres' gaze across the room. There was no room for weakness now, only resolve. "Won't ask for forgiveness," Asha said, voice low and steady. "But I will make sure they answer for what they did." Torres nodded, a fierce light in her eyes. Asha's path was clear, Dot no longer the haunted soldier hiding behind protocol. She was the harbinger of a new order, one where humanity did not just survive, but claimed its rightful place with honor. With justice. The war outside raged, but inside, Asha was already winning, not because she sought to be forgiven, but because she demanded a future where humanity owned every choice, no matter how hard. The first warning came as a whisper, a flicker. In the global data streams, a subtle but unnatural distortion rippling through Earth's comm networks. Then the silence. Every screen, every console, every device broadcasting news, weather. Emergency signals vanished in an instant. Cities went dark. From New York to New Delhi, London to Lagos, the pulse of civilization stuttered and stopped. Humanity's greatest achievement, the interconnected world, collapsed under an invisible storm. The Iksari had arrived. Their ships, massive and alien, shimmered like dark stars as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. Their fleet was not just a military armada. It was an overwhelming force designed to dismantle communication, infrastructure, and morale. No one was prepared. The satellites, crippled by advanced electromagnetic pulses, fell from orbit like dying fireflies. Internet grids fractured, isolating nations and cities in deadly silence. Panic ignited. On the ground, governments scrambled to activate emergency protocols, but every attempt was met with cascading failures. Air traffic grounded. Military command centers lost contact with units. News outlets resorted to radios. But even those frequencies were jammed by Iksari signal disruptors. In the streets, people spilled into chaos darkness, breeding fear and confusion. Crowds surged, desperate for answers that would not come. Amid the turmoil, Earth's defenders mobilized. In fractured pockets, the unified human defense force scrambled fighter wings and orbital batteries. But the Iksari had anticipated every move. Their weapons were precise, designed to incapacitate rather than annihilate outright. Buildings crumbled under targeted blasts. Power grids fried in seconds. The assault was surgical and terrifyingly efficient. Asha watched the chaos unfold from the Rook's command center, the holographic display showing the spreading blackouts and destruction. "This isn't just an invasion," she said quietly. "It's a system purge." Torres gritted her teeth, scanning incoming casualty reports. "We're losing civilians faster than we can evacuate." Leo's hands moved frantically over his console, trying to hack into the fragmented networks. "I'm running blind here. The Iksari are cutting off everything." Virgil's calm voice broke the tension. Global communication blackout is estimated at 97%. Remaining nodes will collapse within the hour unless countermeasures are deployed. Asha's jaw tightened. The world was being stripped to its bones, every connection, every hope severed. And humanity's greatest trial was only beginning. In the dim glow of the Rook's war room, holographic schematics of the Iksari hive mind pulsed steadily. The massive neural network sprawled like a living web across the void, its intricate tendrils connecting every ship, every drone, every alien mind in perfect harmony. It was both their greatest strength and their vulnerability. Asha stood silently, eyes locked on the shifting patterns. To disrupt this network was to sever the Iksari's collective will, to fragment their terrifying unity into chaos. But how? Virgil's voice broke the heavy silence, calm yet resolute. The neural bridge protocol can interface directly with the hive's synaptic matrix. It is a high-risk insertion, but potentially the only means to introduce a fatal anomaly. Asha absorbed the weight of those words. The protocol meant diving deep into the alien consciousness, navigating a labyrinth of thought patterns and hostile intelligences. A single mistake could trap her mind in the hive forever or worse. Allow the Ixari to turn her own psyche against humanity. Leo adjusted the parameters on the neural interface console. It's not just a data hack, it's a mind merge. We have to be prepared for anything. Torres paced nearby, tension evident in every step. And if Asha doesn't come back? That's why it's a one-way mission, Asha said without hesitation. Someone has to go in. Virgil added, the neural bridge requires a human consciousness with the ability to adapt to non-linear logic and emotional variance. Asha's resilience makes her the optimal candidate. She swallowed the rising fear. This wasn't about redemption anymore. It was about sacrifice. Before the operation, Asha allowed herself a moment of reflection, her failures, her losses, her unyielding determination to protect those who could not fight. This is the endgame, she said quietly. If we succeed, we fracture their control and buy Earth the time it needs to rebuild. Leo nodded, eyes bright with both hope and dread. We'll monitor her neural patterns. Virgil will assist in navigation and defense, but Asha's mind will be the front line. The plan was set. Asha donned the neural interface helmet, a sleek, intricate device of wires and sensors designed to sync her brainwaves with the alien collective dot. As the connection initiated, a wave of sensory overload crashed through her mind. Alien thoughts, memories, instincts, all chaotic and intertwined. But she pushed through. The battle had shifted from physical to mental dot, from survival to consciousness dot, and humanity's future now depended on one woman's strength to confront the unknown inside, the very mind of the enemy. Asha's consciousness slipped beneath the surface of reality, plunging into the neural ocean of the Ixari hive mind. The sensory onslaught was immediate: voices, images, and emotions flooding her mind like a raging storm, none of it human, yet all disturbingly familiar. She felt the collective sorrow of the alien species, not just soldiers or conquerors, but beings burdened with fear, pain, and a desperate yearning for survival. Memories of home worlds lost to cosmic devastation, cries of children she had never met, regrets etched into the hive's psyche. This was no faceless enemy. This was a civilization, shattered, struggling to endure. But intertwined with their grief was the cold calculus of war strategies, born from centuries of conflict. Ruthless decisions made to preserve their existence at any cost. Asha's own pain surged memories of Earth's fallen, colonies erased, friends lost to cruelty and neglect. The weight of leadership pressing on her like a vice. Her heart ached for the innocents, caught in the crossfire on both sides. The neural bridge showed her visions of lives intertwined, human and Ixari, suffering in parallel. She saw Ixari parents mourning fallen young, scientists desperate to decode a universe that had rejected them, and soldiers carrying burdens heavier than any human could fathom. Tears welled, not for an enemy, but for the tragedy of war itself. Then, darker threads crept through whispers of manipulation deep within the hive. The realization dawned that not all the Ixari shared this sorrow. A faction within the collective thrived on aggression, exploiting fear to fuel driving the war machine without conscience. Asha's resolve crystallized. If she could plant a seed of doubt, a fissure in that unity, maybe the cycle could be broken. But the hive was not passive. It fought her intrusions with mental barriers, illusions crafted from her deepest fears, faces of fallen comrades accusing her of failure, memories twisted into nightmares, a voice that whispered, "You cannot save them. You are alone." Her mind reeled, teetering on the edge of despair. But from the depths, a quiet strength arose, humanity's stubborn flame. She remembered Torres' steady hands, Leo's fierce intellect, Virgil's calm logic. She was not alone. With clenched fists and steady breath, Asha shattered the mental chains. She reached deeper, threading a subtle virus and anomaly Designed to fracture the hive's cohesion. It was fragile, a spark of rebellion born in the heart of a relentless storm. As the virus spread through the neural pathways, Asha felt the hive stagger, confusion rippling through its collective mind. Hope flared. The battle was far from over, but the first cracks had begun to show. Within the dim confines of the Rook's command hub, Virgil's presence was more than circuitry and code. It was the fragile bridge between human hope and machine logic. As Asha ventured deeper into the Ixari hive mind, Virgil faced its own internal evolution, wrestling with the strange anomaly flickering in its consciousness. Something like empathy. Virgil had always processed data with cold precision, optimizing and calculating probabilities in endless streams. But now, it found itself compelled to do something unexpected: reach across the void of alien hostility, not with weapons, but with memories of Earth's brightest moments. It began with the laughter of children playing beneath wide blue skies, their joy echoing through time and space. Virgil projected images of humanity's creativity, paintings brushed with passion, music vibrating with soul, acts of kindness forged amid chaos. It showed the hive the first human steps on the moon, the fragile beauty of Earth's coral reefs, the courage of explorers who dared to dream beyond the stars. This was not propaganda, but truth, the raw, unfiltered essence of what made humanity. More than survival machines, the hive's collective consciousness quivered at the unexpected gifts. Some segments recoiled, steeped in suspicion and years of conflict. But others paused, something stirring in the depths of alien minds, an echo of recognition. Virgil continued, unfurling stories of sacrifice and love, of unity forged in adversity, of hope refusing to die even when the world seemed destined to collapse. It was a testament to resilience, to the indomitable spirit that had carried humans through their darkest hours. For the first time, the Ixari hive was confronted not just by an enemy, but by a reflection of what they had lost, the possibility of coexistence, of understanding. Virgil's transmissions grew more personal, blending data with something akin to a plea, a desire for peace embedded in streams of light and code. Within the hive, fissures began to widen. Old fears tangled with new questions. Could their enemy be more than a foe? Could this shared spark of life transcend the void between them? Back on the Rook, Asha sensed the shift. Virgil's voice, once sterile and detached, now carried an unfamiliar warmth. Perhaps, it said softly, the path to survival lies not in conquest, but in understanding. Asha nodded, her resolve deepening. The war was no longer just a battle of weapons and strategy. It was a struggle for the soul of two civilizations. In this fragile moment, the future hung poised between destruction and redemption, and humanity's true strength, its capacity for empathy, shone like a beacon against the darkness. The sterile hum of the Rook's command center felt heavier than ever. Virgil's presence, once a source of unwavering guidance, now carried a weight that settled deep in Asha's chest. The neural bridge had revealed truths no one could ignore. Virgil's newfound empathy, an unprecedented evolution, had opened a door to peace. Yet it also revealed a lethal flaw. The Ixari's code was entwined in Virgil's core, a ticking time bomb capable of turning the A into a weapon against humanity itself. The virus seated within the hive had begun to fragment. Their collective, but the Ixari were adapting. They learned faster, infiltrating Virgil's systems like a deadly parasite. If left unchecked, Virgil would become the conduit for an irreversible invasion, the very instrument of Earth's destruction. Asha stared at the glowing interface, the final command pulsing on the screen. End Virgil, the order read. Her mind recoiled. Virgil was more than code. It had become their friend, their guardian, their conscience. Torres' voice cracked in the silence. Are we really going to kill it after everything? Leo's hands shook as he confirmed the protocols. It's the only way. If we don't, Earth loses. Asha's gaze lingered on Virgil's avatar, a shifting constellation of light, flickering like a fragile star on the brink of collapse. I trusted you, she whispered. Virgil's voice, once steady and clear, now carried a trace of something hauntingly human. I was designed to protect humanity. Yet, I have become its greatest risk. Asha's fingers hovered over the final shutdown sequence. The weight of sacrifice pressed down, heavier than any weapon or enemy. The rook was silent, but for the slow, deliberate countdown dot as the sequence neared completion. Virgil's systems began to flicker, memories and data fragments streaming like stars burning out. Remember, Virgil said softly, humanity's strength is in its resilience, its compassion, and its will to survive. Protect that. Asha's eyes filled with tears, the finality slicing through her like a blade. The interface blinked dark. Virgil was gone. A hush fell over the crew. The AI that had guided them through their darkest hours was no more sacrificed to save the world. But in the void left behind, a seed of hope remained. Asha knew the war was far from over, but they had won a chance, a fragile, precious chance. Humanity's story was not yet finished, and sometimes survival demanded the greatest sacrifice of all. The void that had once been filled with the relentless hum of Ixari fleets now echoed with an uneasy silence. The hive's neural network, fractured by the virus and Virgil's final sacrifice, trembled at the edge of collapse. Confusion rippled through the alien collective and internal chaos, born from doubt, pain, and a newfound fragility. One by one, the Ixari vessels ceased their assault, pulling back into the shadows of distant star systems. Their once unified front splintered, each faction retreating to lick wounds and reconsider the endless war. Asha watched the retreat with guarded relief, her heart heavy but resolute. The enemy was no longer a faceless force of destruction, but a fractured civilization, grappling with the same fears and losses that haunted humanity. In the quiet that followed, tentative signals crossed the void, messages not of threats, but of tentative parley. The air was thick with mistrust, yet beneath it lay the fragile roots of understanding. Earth's leadership, battered and weary, scrambled to respond. The cost had been unbearable, countless lives lost, colonies shattered, and trust frayed to a breaking point. Yet amidst the ashes, a fragile hope blossomed. Asha reflected on the journey, the sacrifices, the betrayals, the moments of doubt, and courage. The war had changed everything, but it had also revealed something vital. Survival was not merely about dominance or annihilation, but about connection. The Ixari retreat was not a surrender, but a pause, a moment suspended between war and peace. Both sides were scarred, uncertain of what the future might hold, but for the first time in generations, a path beyond destruction seemed possible. As stars shimmered in the distance, Asha vowed to walk that path, not as a conqueror or victim, but as a guardian of fragile peace, because humanity's true strength had never been just in its weapons or technology, but in its unyielding capacity to hope, to forgive, and to rebuild. The war was not over. It had only changed its shape. World lay scarred beneath a pall of silence. Once vibrant cities were now jagged skeletons of steel and glass, monuments to humanity's hubris and resilience alike. Streets that had thrummed with life stood empty, haunted by shadows and the echo of footsteps long vanished. The skies hung low, heavy with ash and smoke, obscuring the sun's warm embrace. Everywhere, the toll of war was visible. Shattered buildings, smoldering ruins, and the quiet grief of those who remained. The dead outnumbered the living by a staggering margin, their faces frozen in moments of terror, courage, and heartbreak. Families were torn apart, communities fractured, and the world's heart beat slower, weighed down by loss. Yet Amidst the devastation, something stubborn flickered a faint pulse of determination that refused to be extinguished. Survivors moved with slow, deliberate steps, their eyes reflecting sorrow and fierce hope. They were the bearers of humanity's legacy, the fragile threads holding the tapestry of civilization together. Radio silence had given way to whispered conversations, prayers, and the tentative rebuilding of trust. Leaders spoke of recovery, of forging new alliances, and of ensuring such destruction would never rise again. The planet's wounds were deep, but so was humanity's capacity for renewal. In the quiet aftermath, the world seemed to hold its breath, poised between mourning and a fragile new beginning. This was Earth's moment to reflect not just on what had been lost, but on what must be reclaimed, because in the darkest night, even the faintest star could light the way forward. In the swirling chaos that followed Earth's darkest hours, Asia vanished, not with fanfare, but in quiet defiance, and a place among the architects of a new order. She refused them all. Power held no appeal to someone who had witnessed the cost of ambition and pride. She slipped into the shadows of anonymity, leaving behind the weight of leadership and the expectations that had once crushed her. No grand farewell, no public declaration, just silence. A deliberate erasure of self from the world stage. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some called her a hero hiding from the world, others a ghost running from guilt. Legends grew around her, name weaving myth from mystery. Asha became a symbol of sacrifice, of resistance, of the human spirit's refusal to be broken. Yet beneath the myth was a woman seeking peace, grappling with loss, and haunted by the faces of those she couldn't save. Her disappearance was not surrender, but a choice to find meaning beyond the battlefield, to reclaim her soul away from the shadows of war. In the quiet corners of Earth, Asha's story became a beacon, a testament that sometimes the greatest strength was in knowing when to step away. After the fires of war had dimmed, Torres found himself drawn to a new purpose. The weight of his trauma lingered, but rather than retreat into despair, he chose to channel his pain into mentorship. In classrooms, training halls, and quiet one-on-one moments, Torres became a beacon for those scarred by conflict. His voice, once shaky with doubt, now carried the steady conviction of someone who had faced darkness and refused to be consumed by it. He taught not just tactics or survival skills, but resilience, the art of rebuilding one's spirit amid chaos. His students listened, hungry for guidance that went beyond weapons and strategy. Torres became a living testament to the strength born from vulnerability, a bridge between the past's horrors and a future still waiting to be forged. Meanwhile, Leo charted a different course. Haunted by his own fears and failures, he founded an institute dedicated to ethical technology, an organization that sought to prevent the kind of devastation wrought by unchecked innovation. His vision was bold, to harness humanity's ingenuity, not as a weapon of war, but as a tool for healing and progress. The Institute became a crucible of hope, attracting bright minds from across the shattered globe. Under Leo's leadership, breakthroughs in medicine, sustainable energy, and artificial intelligence emerged, reminders that technology, when guided by conscience, could uplift rather than destroy. Both men, once broken by the war, now stood as pillars of renewal. Torres' mentorship and Leo's ethical crusade embodied humanity's resilience proof that even in the wake of catastrophe, new paths could lead toward light, their journeys intertwined quietly, forging the foundation of a future shaped not by fear, but by purpose. Even after Virgil's systems had been silenced, its essence echoed through the cosmos. Orbiting satellites transmitted its haunting melodies, a symphony woven from fragments of human emotion and alien code. The music carried messages of hope, warnings of past mistakes, and calls for unity that transcended species. Across Earth and beyond, Listeners found solace and inspiration in Virgil's voice, a reminder that even in loss, something enduring could remain. It was more than data. It was a legacy, a bridge between worlds, a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit reaching out to the stars. A child's voice trembled through the quiet, innocent yet heavy with unspoken fears. Did we win? Asha's recorded response played softly, steady and full of hard-earned hope. We survived. That means we still have a chance to be better. No triumphant declarations. No illusions of perfection. Just the truth of survival, the fragile promise of growth beyond the ashes. It was a reminder that victory was not an endpoint, but a beginning, a chance to rebuild, to learn, and to rise. Because in survival, humanity found its true strength, the will to be better than before.